parents can mitigate sibling competition, sibling rivalry, sibling trauma bonding, things like that, where siblings are like siblings are going to fight. Like there's going to be conflict, but there doesn't need to be competition or resentment because the sibling gets away with things and I don't, or the sibling gets treated a certain way differently than me because they're younger or because they're older or whatever. There are ways as parents to become more conscious about our own biases and create a little more equity in the home. Welcome to the Relational Parenting Podcast. I'm Jennifer Hayes, a parent coach and 20-year childcare veteran. Each week, I sit down with my own father, Rick Hayes, and discuss the complicated issues that parents face today, as well as some of the oldest questions in the book. From the latest research and the framework of my relational parenting method, we offer thought-provoking solutions to your deepest parenting struggles. Added bonuses include intergenerational wounding discussions and guest childcare experts. We will also start taking your parenting questions in episode 5, so be sure to comment with your biggest questions or email me directly at jenny@jennyb.co. Let's get started. All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Relational Parenting Podcast, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a Jenny and Papa Rick week. And this week we are going to talk about sibling relationships and birth order. This is something that we've mentioned a couple of times, but haven't really dove into. And it's definitely something that I've noticed in my experiences as a nanny, and also in my experiences growing up with siblings, and just other people that I've talked to along the way. There tend to be some very common birth order responsibility type things, roles that are attached to birth orders. And then there's also gender roles at play between siblings and expectations that are different based on which sibling you are. And a lot of these things, there's either bond the siblings or cause conflict in the siblings, between the siblings. And the primary goal of what I want to talk about today is to explore those things, but also discuss ways that parents can mitigate sibling competition, sibling rivalry, sibling trauma bonding, things like that, where siblings are like siblings are going to fight. Like there's going to be conflict, but there doesn't need to be competition or resentment because the sibling gets away with things and I don't, or the sibling gets treated a certain way differently than me because they're younger or because they're older or whatever. There are ways as parents to become more conscious about our own biases and create a little more equity in the home, especially as we have more than one child and our children are exploring their first same age relationships with one another and teaching them those relationship skills very, very early on.
That's the ideal. As a parent that understands conflict and how to coach kids through it or how to raise kids through it so it serves them well later, as opposed to sit down, shut up, or sit on your hands like I used to do, or there's better ways, learn better ways to do it. And I think it starts with being able to regulate. As you've said many times, the parents need to regulate themselves, have to be in a place where they can think straight. Things can't be, if things are super hectic, sometimes a parent is just like, I need this to happen or stop now. And trying to keep things on a footing where you can be mindful, you can be intentional about all those fun things that happen when you have 2 or 3 kids. I remember you
or
talking
more.
in school of or more. Yeah.
Imagine if you had 5 or 6
When you
kids
were
in
in
the back of the van instead of just 3.
oh my god, I can't imagine. We had 3 and I can't it's hard to imagine. Some people grew up in great big families and love the idea, think a family should be great big, and that would just be a different experience. I remember you in school talking about having friends in the sorority that had grown up without brothers or something. The mix of sexes and ages and stuff.
That is still a
That's
thing. I can still point
all the
at a
combinations.
yeah. I can still point at any woman and go, "You didn't have brothers growing up, did you?"
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
It's only gotten more obvious as, I've gotten older and as the people, that I'm
We'll have to do an
around
episode on
surrounded
that
by have
sometime.
gotten older. So, okay. So,
We're not talking
so
flavor.
sibling relationships, um, whether you are, so sorry to the single child people. But this could still be really good for you to know, with your children's friends as they get older, cousins, any interaction with children. This can really help children with other children. So, um, between siblings, there tends to be, when there's conflict, there tends to be a goal of finding out who's right and who's wrong. Just that's just human nature. It's what we do. And just like in adult relationships, adult conflicts, or anywhere else in our lives, we tend to be naturally black and white thinkers, right and wrong, like solving the puzzle instead of focusing
Categorizing.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, instead of focusing on um, empathy, emotions, experience, and coming to a uh, compromise or an agreement, getting on the same page. And, one of the number one rules is the human beings involved are a team. And the goal is to identify the problem and problem solve. And so if you can apply that to your children, anytime there's a conflict with your children, neither of the children is wrong. Even if it's something as obvious as older child hit younger child, we don't make the
Hmm.
child wrong. We make the
Oh, right.
action wrong
That's
or
right.
the
That's right.
problem, because there was a problem. There was a catalyst to that behavior, which could have been
Hmm.
younger sibling
They needed
grabbed
a
the
snack.
toy. Right. They deserved it. No. Um,
I'm saying things that you're going to have to edit out.
right. Younger sibling took the toy from the older sibling. So older sibling smacked. They were both in the
Yeah.
wrong. So there's no,
Yeah.
there's no point
Stimulus
in,
response. Something happened. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and sometimes it's really hard too if it's the older sibling who instigated and took the toy from the younger sibling, because that, as grown adults, and we look at that as even more like injustice. Like when the older
Yeah.
sibling does something to the younger sibling, it almost
Yeah.
feels worse. And we want to
That's a
stop it, fix it, make it like shame,
yeah.
do absolutely not. How dare you? You are bigger and
You little
stronger and
monster. Yeah.
smarter,
Yeah.
and how dare you take advantage of your younger sibling? And that's all, like, you're literally acting out the horrible injustice that they just committed,
That
instead
is
of
such
being the
a big
calm.
thing.
Yeah. And it's
Injustice
such
is
a
such a trigger for
natural.
everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's valid. It's a valid, like, good. If you have that instinct of injustice, like, internalize that towards yourself. Like, take a
Yeah.
minute and be like, okay, I just watched my child commit an injustice towards a younger, smaller, less powerful being than themselves. And
Yeah.
now my job is to not then commit that same injustice against them, but to come in as a calm, loving presence who loves them just as much as I love this one over here. And I'm going to help them through it. instead of committing the exact same
Yeah.
injustice
Yeah. And
to that
that's a
child.
deep breath moment for a parent. At
Or
least I
or
know as a
10 deep
dad,
breaths, you know?
you see that and you just want to go, come here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Come here.
Oh, trust me. Yeah.
And yeah. Okay, what do we want to do here?
So, so I would invite parents to look at any situation between siblings with a lens of how can I help them? How can I coach them to problem solve their conflict instead of walking in with the goal of assigning blame, right and wrong, justice or injustice, and assigning punishment. So walking in to a conflict, whether you are right there directly witnessing it, or you are walking in on it after something has occurred, or while something is while something is occurring, um, I have a couple of scenarios to present. We've done a lot of presenting on very young children, so 1-year-olds and 3-year-olds, or 2-year-olds and 5-year-olds. That
Yeah.
1 to
Yeah.
5, 0 to 5 age
Age-appropriate.
range. Bigger kid smacks younger
Yeah.
kid, or whatever. We've done that in a lot of episodes, so I want to touch on something a little bit bigger. I want to talk about like the 6 to 10 or 6 to 12 year range, and then I want to talk about the teenager range, because
Ooh.
these can be a little harder to walk into and stay calm in, because they've got the words. They're not just losing their minds emotionally, and you need to just like woo-saw through the emotions, and then you have all the
Mm-hmm.
answers. This older age range gets a little trickier, because you've got to woo-saw through the emotions, and then you've got to navigate some really deep thinkers who have the
Yeah.
words to put to why they feel bad and why they think it's justified that they did what they did,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all of those things. And it adds another layer to it. Um, and so,
Yeah, if you've raised them right, they're a little more sophisticated. They can keep
yeah,
up with you, and you need to have the rules straight and wise.
yeah.
And yeah, better than because I told you so. Wears thin when they get a little older.
Yeah. And it's really important that you don't walk in and just squash it and make everybody go sit in their corners until they calm down too. Like, that might be needed like every great once in a while, if somebody really cannot calm down in the moment, and have a discussion together. But 9 times out of 10, if you can walk into that room and be the calm presence and invite them to calm down, and we're going to work through this together. No one's getting in trouble. We're just going to talk this out. If you can walk in and create the peace, or the calm that is needed in order to problem solve with your children, 9 times out of 10, they're going to do that with you, especially if you've been doing it since they were
Yeah.
little. But if you haven't,
Yeah.
um, and you're starting something new, it might take a few tries. So
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe you
Yeah.
have a 7 and a 10-year-old. We're going to go with that. So you've got two very verbal children who know how they feel. They have their own belongings, their own clothes, maybe their own bedrooms at this point. And you walk in on them, screaming at each other, fighting over a shirt, yanking on something. No, it's mine. No, it's mine, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting over something. You walk in. Your first job is to bring the energy you want into the room. Do not join their chaos. So your first job is to walk in
Yeah.
and be the calm that you're trying to get them to be.
Great.
And yes, and that doesn't mean that you walk in and you're talking like this and we're all just gonna, sometimes calm, like like powerful calm, is you walk in and you're like, hey, you guys, I don't know what's happening here, but we all need to take a deep breath and step away from one another before it goes too
Mm-hmm.
far. And then
Mm-hmm.
we'll work this out together. But it can be a very firm, like, like knock it off without being the knock it off, the like
Mm-hmm.
dismissive,
Mm-hmm.
like brushed off words. And that reassurance inside of that firmness, that calmness, the reassurance that we are going to work through this together, it assures your children who are already in a heightened state that you're not walking in to just start doling out punishments and solutions. And I don't care what it is. And I don't care what she said or you did. Like, everybody just go to your corners and shut up. And no one's going to get heard or validated about what happened or how they're feeling. So walking in, being that calm, being that firm, assured leader, and then offering a quick reassurance of
Mm-hmm.
like, we're gonna work through this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Because
get that.
that,
I can remember
yeah.
walking in. I remember doing the knock it off thing.
Yeah.
I can remember saying, I don't know what's going on, but I'm tired of listening to it. Right. And then I don't know how effectively I followed up with the, just knock it off, or I imagine ideally what you want to do is walk in and coach them through resolving the conflict
Mm-hmm.
in some way, or better, or taking a break from it anyway and come back if it's, maybe it's not something that can be resolved. I mean, a shirt, yeah, okay, but maybe there's some fight going on that's more deeply rooted. But yeah, using it as a always using it as a teaching moment, once, assuming there's no danger or like that going on.
Yeah. And a teaching moment, I even want to change that language to a guiding moment, because teaching
Hmm.
implies that
Okay.
you are handing down a solution. Teaching
Teaching, coaching, yeah.
is um you are solving the problem
I
instead of
I have
helping
all the
them.
answers, and yeah,
Yeah, instead of helping them solve the problem. And at age 7
yep.
and 10, we're in this window of development for most typical children. 7 is right on that cusp. Um, but 10, we're well into the window of logic and reasoning and rational thought and
Hmm.
abstract concepts. And so we are able to bring the energy down and have a discussion and say, you know, so and so, like, everyone's going to get heard, and last time there was a conflict, 7-year-old got to talk first, so this time it's 10-year-old's turn. 10-year-old, for you, in your experience, what happened? Why are you upset? 10-year-old, let her tell her story. Let them be him or her. Let them be animated. Let them be upset. Let them tell their story. And then you say, wow, I hear you. That sounds really frustrating. Something that validates.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
don't have to validate her reasoning. You don't have to validate any occurrence or that she should have reacted that way. You don't need to
Hmm.
validate the behavior, but validating that her experience was upsetting. That
Yeah.
sounds like you were really
Validate the
upset.
emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds really upsetting. That sounds really frustrating. You sound so frustrated about that.
You sound so frustrated. Yeah.
And then 10-year-old is validated. Okay, 7-year-old, in your experience, what happened? Why are you upset? 7-year-old expresses themselves. We offer validation. Oh yeah, that sounds really frustrating too. Or, oh man, that sounds, you sound really sad. You sound hurt.
Mm.
Hurt is a very underused word that can solve a lot of problems. um, when we get angry, when we get scared, when we get sometimes even underlying frustration, but when we get sad, angry, scared, almost always what's under one of
Mm-hmm.
those three emotions is hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Is
hurt.
you
My feelings are
it
hurt. I
covers a
feel,
world of degrees. Yeah.
yeah, I feel betrayed. I
Yeah, that's
feel,
a good word.
so hurt is, it's just such a useful word. And it's the core of a lot of our emotions and conflicts with other people. And so, you can even offer, oh, that sounds like that really hurt you. You sound really hurt right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, I like
offering
that.
that to each of your children. Um, and so we're coming in, we're changing the energy in the room, and we are allowing each child to have a voice and to be heard and seen and acknowledged for their side of the story. Because this is teaching kids that, one, that they deserve to be treated like that in their future relationships, and two, that you are not on anyone's side. You are there for both of them, and you're there to help them work through a conflict, not to pass judgment, pass down
Mm-hmm.
punishment, or decide who's right and wrong. And
They
from
have to sit
there,
there while the other one describes their point of view too. So it's a good one from that
yes,
point of view to teach you to sit there and listen to someone, no matter how wrong you think they are.
yes,
Sit there and
yes,
describe it, knowing you're going to get your turn. So yeah, that would be a real good exercise for a lot of adults. Anybody.
absolutely. Practice, they get to practice listening to that other side of the story, and they get to do it when they're young, so that when they're older and have romantic relationships and friendships, they aren't fucking assholes for lack of a better word.
Even work relationships. I can see that
Yes.
extending to all kinds of relationships
Yeah.
where they recognize that when you're not being heard, hey, wait a minute, you're talking a lot about your stuff, you're not listening to my stuff.
Mhm.
That's that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Can that be resolved or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um so many life lessons, so many life skills being learned from one simple little sibling
Hmm.
conflict.
Hmm.
But the number one that I want to hit on the head with this episode is that your children are not learning to resent one another, because parent number one or whatever is taking sides, passing judgment, and
Yeah.
deciding who's right and wrong. And then your kids
Yeah.
walk away. They don't walk away mad at you. You're the rule
Yeah.
maker. You're the one in charge already. You're already like the manager at the office. Like, they're not supposed to like you, but they're supposed to trust you.
Just,
And they're supposed,
well,
and they,
establish the authority and fairness, that you
yes,
are a source of that. Yeah.
but you are also like, for them to trust and respect you. A lot of parents talk about, my kids don't respect me. My kids talk back to me. If you want your kids to
Hmm.
respect you, but you're the one passing judgment and constant punishment and dismissive of them and their feelings and their conflicts, they're not going to respect you, and they're not
Yeah.
going to respect each other, and they're just going to continue to boil at each other, and those conflicts are just going to keep happening. It is amazing
Yeah, they have
when
to.
you teach children conflict resolution skills. I've seen it happen with kids that I still take care of every once in a while, a 3 and a 5-year-old. They talk through conflicts. A 3 and 5-year-old
Yeah, they model it.
discuss
Yeah.
their conflicts and hug it out and move on when they have a disagreement during a
Nice.
game or whatever. Like,
How old are they now? 3 and
they're 3
5
and
now?
5. Yeah, they're 3 and
Or
5 now.
when you were? Yeah.
He
So
just
that's
turned
the best
5.
time to get at them. If you wait to, it's harder when you wait to do this till they're more fully formed. If you don't start this till they're 22, it's going to be real slow to change. It's, if you can get them young, they get those habits young, then it makes the whole thing easier. You know, little kids
Yeah,
are pick things up quick.
they do. So whether you've been doing this since your kids were young, or you're just hearing this for the first time now and starting now, you know, the point is, causing sibling rivalry and resentment through unconscious parenting is a huge issue, and I see it I literally don't know that I think I have one family that I can honestly say I've seen handle sibling conflict really well. And in a
Nobody's been taught
way,
really to do it. It's
I know that's why we're out here, is that it's not common
yeah,
knowledge. Um,
yeah,
and causing, there are things that like me and my brothers we're fairly close, and there are still things from our childhood that we will sling at each other if we get mad
mm-hmm,
enough at one another. If one of us triggers
mm-hmm,
something, there are two or three phrases that have lived since we were like 7 years old that we know we can
mm-hmm,
throw at each other and just
mm-hmm,
destroy the other person and just send them into a
mm-hmm,
like lost fit of rage. Um,
yeah,
and we're all in our 30s, like, and we can still do, like, they live forever. Anyone who thinks like, oh, that's just dumb young rival, dumb sibling shit that they'll grow out of, they do not grow out of it. So if you want your
no,
children to, long
no,
after you're gone, to have these like beautiful friendship, loving and supportive, and your families get together and the cousins know each other and all of that, like, you got to start when they're little. Like, their relationship starts
yeah,
when they're little. So anyway,
when
like,
they're little, yeah,
you know, a lot of stuff also can get worked through when your siblings become adults, but there are a lot of families where it doesn't. The sibling
it doesn't.
rivalry is insane. You
I heard
always
a
got away with
story.
everything. You always did
Yeah,
this. Well, no offense, but your siblings are a great example of
I go
sibling
to
rivalry never
yeah,
being resolved.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I kind of stay apart from it now, and as a
Yeah.
result, it's like, yeah, I engaged and tried to fix and tried various approaches, and I ran out of ideas, so I just kind of let it go. You know,
And I'm sure maybe
um,
they feel the same way. I don't know. And
probably, probably,
if they're like, well,
yeah.
you
In
tried,
fairness,
everybody tried, and maybe there's just
yeah,
not a, you all just, it's, I mean, you all, like, when it gets ingrained and it's, you guys are all, you're in your 60s, your sister's in her 70s, like, um,
John's
when it
pushing
goes that
70 if he's
far
not
for that
there.
long and it's that deeply
He's
rooted from like 5, 6, 7 years old, that is
yeah,
hard. That is
hard to
hurt
root
that
out.
runs deep. That is hard to work through.
The longer it's like it sits there, and especially if you don't actually deal with it, getting to the whole therapy thing or something, take when you're hurt, or there's a bad habit and you don't and you never deal with it, you just press it down,
Yeah.
ignore it, it'll go away. Then that's no, they don't really go away. You really got to drag it out and feel it and deal with it. I heard a story the other day. I go to a couple of men's groups and talk with guys, and heard a story about somebody that had been required by a parent to apologize to an older sibling in order to keep the peace.
Yeah.
No matter what, the younger was to apologize, and eventually just rebelled. It didn't take that long. I'm not sure what age, but I'm imagining at adolescence, you know, and
Yeah.
finally going to the parent and saying, I ain't doing that no more. That's
Yeah.
just not, it didn't fix anything. And, just a parent trying to make the conflict go away, but it's not helpful, and it lasts forever. In this
Yeah.
particular relationship, it's lasted up to this time, so yeah,
Yeah.
better in worse ways.
Well, and so jumping back to our example, because I don't want to leave people hanging on the resolution of
Yes.
a conflict. So we have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and you've walked into the room. Everyone is calm. You offered reassurance. We're going to talk through this, and everyone is going to be heard. 10-year-old told their side of the story. 7-year-old told their side of the story. Both feelings were validated. So now
Mm-hmm.
this is where the actual resolution comes in. So now we go to 10. We go to, actually, You could have even, you can do this at the end or you can do this in between, is like if 10-year-old goes first, tells their side of the story, we can then say, ask 7-year-old, like, did you hear, can you repeat back what you heard 10-year-old saying about their
Mm-hmm.
feelings? And then maybe,
Mirroring, is that
yeah, yeah. Can
paraphrasing, something
you,
like that? Yeah.
but it's also, it's an exercise in making sure that they actually were listening and not just having their own thoughts and comebacks to what
Yeah.
that person was saying, but
Yeah.
also that they fully understand what part of their behavior or words or actions hurt 10-year-olds, so that in the future they know, oh, this is hurtful to this person, so maybe I'll choose not to do it next time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, they might have just thought, they might have not even known that, oh, that might be hurtful. Like, most kids are not purposefully hurting someone. They're just doing shit because they had an idea and want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unless there's major sibling rivalry and competition in the house, in which case they are, in fact, executing these things for
Until
thought.
they learn it's a button, a hot button. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. But
So
yeah, kids
anyway,
don't necessarily think things through.
7-year-old reflects back to 10-year-old the thing that they did that hurt them. And we're not saying, so tell me what you did to hurt this person. We're saying, did you hear what 10-year-old said? Can you repeat that back to her?
Yeah.
Can you
What did she
simply
say? Yeah.
repeat? We're not saying you did this wrong, so you need to say it back. We're saying, can you repeat
Mm-hmm.
what 10-year-old just told you?
Do you understand what
Do you
upset
understand what
7-year-old?
why 10-year-old is upset? Repeat that back. Great. All right. Now it's 7-year-old's turn. 7-year-old, tell your side of the story. Why? Oh yeah, that sounds frustrating. You sound hurt too. And then we say, 10-year-old, what did 7-year-old just tell you about how they were feeling? 10-year-old reflects back. And maybe there's some minor corrections or whatever that need to happen there in their reflections to each other. And you let that happen. And then we say, okay, so now we know that this thing hurts 10-year-old's feelings. And then when 10-year-old did this, it hurt 7-year-old's feelings. And then there's, so what do we think the solution is? How could we have, what can the solution be now? Who gets to wear the shirt, or whose shirt is this, or whatever? And then what is the future solution for this to not happen again?
Yeah. How do we
Oh,
avoid
well,
this
in the
situation?
future, I could ask 10-year-old if I could see if my shirt is in her closet instead of just running into her room without permission,
There you
because I
go.
think my shirt's in here. Whatever the solution is for the future. So we're coming up with a solution in the moment. What do you guys think is fair? What do you guys, do you guys feel like you want to apologize to each other for hurting one another? And of course, encouraging that, but not demanding it, because an apology needs to come from actually feeling sorry for, or guilty or whatever. And then
And letting them
discussing
develop it.
a future option. Okay, next time I can ask permission or knock on the door. And maybe 7-year-old solution is, next time I can ask permission to come in and see if my shirt is in her closet. And okay, 10-year-old, what's your solution? Well, I could not put her shirt in my closet because I know it's her shirt, or I can let her in my room to see if her shirt's in there instead of hiding it from her. Whatever. Whatever the solution is, come up with a solution. Let them come up with solutions.
And you'll have to, and it's best if they come up with it, because we
Yeah.
learn more when we have to synthesize it than when it's just like, okay, here's a list, another rule to write on the wall.
Yeah.
But they're developing boundaries and learning about at least one other person in the world, and they will, of course, there will be the next step where, well, I knocked, but she wasn't there, so I went ahead and went on in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there'll be
all kinds
the
of
next fight
roadblocks.
will be
Yeah.
about the next little baby step.
Yep.
Okay, I did that, but then okay, well, we'll do it again, and eventually the whole route will be covered, and a general rule will emerge. But
And then they'll fight about something else.
it could be frustrating, and you have to do these things when there's time, right? I mean, if we're in the middle of 10-year-old pushing 7-year-old out in front of a car,
right?
No, this has to happen really quick,
right?
But when there's time, there's always those things when there isn't time, or when you haven't got the capacity you're too tired. But if when there's time, if you do this, it will pay off big time.
And yeah, and that's a great point. And I want to say that it takes less time than you think it will. It can actually be a lot faster once you've done it a couple of times and your kids know, they know the deal. They know, okay, I'm going to tell my side, she's going to tell her side. We're going to come up with a
Here's
solution, and
what's
they're
going to happen if
comfortable
we
with the
do this. Yeah,
process. It can actually happen really quickly. I'm talking like 2 minutes.
yeah,
Like a lot of
yeah,
times
and less.
the complaint about these parenting tactics can be, it's so time consuming, it takes so much of my energy, I'm doing other things, blah blah blah. And I'm like, if you just
Yeah,
do it, it literally takes 2 minutes. It can sometimes take a lot less time than screaming until they listen to you and go to their rooms, you know?
and it accumulates. If you do it now, if you get started, especially if you can start when they're little, but whenever you start, you'll have to do it less in the future. So it saves time not
Yeah.
having to listen to the conflicts or
And they'll
the
start
round and
doing it
circle.
themselves without you
It
even in the room.
pays interest.
There will be conflicts
Yeah,
that
it
you don't
pays
even know
dividends.
about because you've given them the tools to do it themselves.
You'll find out when they're in their 30s and you're sitting around talking about, you
Right?
remember that time.
Right? And then you'll be like, where was I when you guys were doing that?
Yeah. Oh, you were gone,
Yeah. And I mean, sibling rivalry is real. It is not, it can go to places that are really dangerous. When you get
Oh, yeah.
older, when you get older, and you have access to weapons, things that can be turned into weapons, like
Mm-hmm.
kids, unchecked emotions, unregulated emotions running rampant in teenagers is a dangerous fucking thing. I
Yeah.
mean, there were knife chases around the house when parents were
Mm-hmm.
gone because we got so
Mm-hmm.
angry at each other. Like
Yeah.
there were real life-threatening things that were just simply lucky didn't happen.
There, but for the grace of God go I. Yep. There's a lot of that in the world.
Yeah. So this is not like some maybe I'll try this, whatever, like unimportant conflict resolution skill that people should just tuck in their pocket for a rainy day. This is like everything we talk about on here is a life saving or life valuing concept of like
Potentially, yeah.
quality of life, the quality of your children's lives, having a life, period. Because what ends lives? Conflict.
Yeah.
Anyway, now that we brought
Yeah.
the energy down, repair is where apology comes in, or if there needs to be an action taken to repair. So we come up with a resolution, and then it's like, can we? And sometimes repair needs to happen before resolution, but they're both in there. And repair can be simple as, I'm sorry that I came into your room without permission, and I will try my best. I won't do that anymore. I will do my best not to do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Repair can be a step further, where let's see, maybe during the pulling of the shirt, or whatever, someone gets smacked in the head or scratched. Maybe there's an actual scratch or an injury that occurs, a minor injury, and it wasn't intentional, but it still happened. And so maybe the
Band-Aid
repair,
involved.
yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
repair of the other party is, I'm sorry that I hurt you. I didn't mean to do that. It just happened in the midst of it, but I'd like to get you an ice pack, or I'd like to be the one to put your Band-Aid on you. And there's an action of repair toward that helps to almost negate the action of hurt. And it's an energetic exchange that happens in the relationship where I'm proving to you through an action that I care about you and that I am sorry that I hurt you. And it's not
Yeah.
just words, but can I show you that I'm sorry through an action right now? And
Yeah.
so
I
offering
like that idea a
repair,
lot.
yeah, repair after conflict is huge.
Yeah.
The couples that I know, you know, I relate this to adult relationships a lot because it's the exact same. When
It
couples
is the same.
argue and you come up with, whatever the fight is about, everybody's hurt, everybody has their point of view and their experience and their feelings, and maybe you do all of the steps, maybe you empathize and you validate each other's feelings and experience, and you even come up with a resolution. If you don't also do the repair piece, the wound is still just going to be open until
There's a lack of
you
closure
just
somehow.
give it time to heal over versus someone coming in and actually changing the energy and dressing the wound and kissing it and
Mm-hmm.
making up for what they
Mm-hmm.
did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that every
Mm-hmm.
single conflict requires a repair, but big ones do. And
Mm-hmm.
and it changes how you feel about one another. It changes the energy in the room. It lets you move forward in a more connected place. When if repair doesn't happen, you kind of just move forward at a distance. And it makes it that much more likely that conflict is going to happen again. It's going to reoccur.
Yeah.
So
Recidivism. Makes me think while you and your brothers were in high school, I got to be on the school board for a while and got to work on a new athletic policy.
mm,
And part of that, I got to talk to a friend at some length, a juvenile probation officer at the time, friend, about punishment and, what's effective and what's not. And she introduced me to the idea of restitution. Punishment.
mm,
It's about discipline. It's about teaching discipline. But there's a place for just, okay, you did this, now you need 20 lashes punishment. But what you're saying about making things better, the restitution, okay, I'll do some kind of penance, running laps for the coach, whatever, doing some kind of action that uh, in as a penance or a restitution for the wrong, paying. I stole something. I need to pay back the money. I need, the
mm,
restitution is a big for things that require it. Some things require it, some things don't. Like you say, but restitution is the word that was coming to mind while you were
yeah.
describing that. You
Yeah.
know,
If you're, same fight, 7 and 10-year-old fighting over the shirt, or take it that the 7-year-old rips the shirt in half and it's 10-year-old's shirt or whatever. All
yeah,
right, 7-year-old has
mm-hmm.
extra chores
Yeah,
to earn the money to
damage,
buy a new shirt. Restitution, repair.
yeah,
Um, my athletic policies, you know, it always, there was a grade average that you had to maintain in order to be in sports, and then there was also a no drugs and alcohol policy,
yeah,
but the punishment was that you didn't get to play.
mm-hmm.
Which for some players was like, I don't play that much anyway, so I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want.
Exactly the reason
For
for the change.
starters, yeah. Well, so for restitution, my thing is that the restitution isn't for the coach. The restitution is for your team. You screwed up your
For the team.
team's. Well, so running laps
Depends,
doesn't
unless
serve
you
the
disrespect
team,
the coach. Yeah.
but I'm saying like specifically like the drugs and alcohol
Mm-hmm.
thing. That's the only thing I ever heard of kids getting punished for. Um,
That was a favorite.
Yeah.
of the
But
community.
anyway,
It was
like the
pretty
punishment
verifiable.
of not playing only hurts the team further. Restoring trust or repairing or restitution would be like, okay, I'm gonna do everybody's dirty laundry after games for the next 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
or like
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do some kind of service to my teammates to make up for my actions that hurt the team. Because
Yeah.
if you take your starter, one of your 5 starters, everything was about basketball in our hometown. If you take one of
Yeah.
your 5 starters and they can't
Yeah.
start for 6 weeks, like you're just screwing the team
Hard
and the
on the season. You're
school and
punishing
the
everybody.
reputation. And yeah. And like that kid, like, yeah, it's a punishment that he has to carry that guilt around, but it doesn't serve anyone. It doesn't serve the kid and it doesn't serve the team. And so giving the
Mm-hmm.
kid something to do that is repair versus punishment is
Yeah, and
actually
that
much
was the
more
idea. It wasn't.
effective. Yeah,
It
much
wasn't.
more
It
effective
wasn't just
tool.
lapse. It was enabling the coach to determine, and preferably with the team involved, what it was going to take
Yeah,
for restitution. If the kid broke a rule, then well, and I'm not even sure. I'd have to go back and dig it out now, but I'm not even sure drugs and alcohol was an infraction at that point. I forget the exact structure of the thing, but the idea was that the community came up with a restitution.
mm,
What's a just restitution for what happened,
yeah,
and to do that, to make them feel part of the team, and to make them feel like they had done their time. It's like, okay, now I'm part of the team. I'm not just ostracized now. I
yeah,
forget what the exact. There were a couple of incidents that prompted it, and they decided it needed to be modified, and I took on the job of modifying it.
yeah. I just want to check my notes. So I want to touch on birth order and attachment between siblings, because the other issue with siblings, it's not just conflict resolution, but also just in day-to-day life and the expectations that we kind of unconsciously create around like first children versus last children, youngest children, oldest children versus youngest
Yeah,
children, or middle children, or different gendered children. And so there's often, boys and girls are often raised differently. And for some situations that apply to specific genders, that's appropriate. But overall, like everyone should be learning a lot of the same skills and have the same uh,
there's more overlap than difference
expectations.
between people
Yes,
a lot of times.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So, birth order, often first children are parentified. They are, no matter what age they are, no matter how much older they are than their younger sibling, they are parentified and they have higher expectations. You should know better, or you do know better, or,
Mm,
you're the oldest, you're the
judgments.
smartest. How dare you do that to your younger sibling? The power over injustice that we started the episode talking about, all of those things, but they get parentified and turned into a third
Parentified.
caregiver. I need your help with, the younger sibling or the younger siblings, or you're the oldest, so I need you to clean or do more chores or whatever. And there's part of that that's good, like assigning chores based on age is good.
Roles.
Um, but I remember I'm not going to tell that story.
Parentifying, just so I understand, that sounds kind of like you're assigning part of an identity to a kid. You're the oldest. You're the smartest. You're this. You're
It's
that.
that you're turning them into a third parent. So they're
Oh, I see what you mean.
expected to care for the other children,
You're
just
a
like a parent.
caretaker. Gotcha. Okay.
Make sure, hey, you're gonna walk them to school, keep them safe. That's not your
Yeah,
child's job. And then if
that's right.
something does happen that they can't control because they're also small,
Yeah.
then they carry that guilt with them. I let this
Yeah.
happen to my younger sibling.
Yeah.
You couldn't
Yeah.
do shit about it either. Like,
I
you're 8.
get it. I get it.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
parentifying or putting older children in charge of younger children when they are not qualified.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of examples of this, but and then there's like older children watching younger children, like babysitting almost. And in certain age differences, that can work. If you have like a teenager, like a 15, 16, 17-year-old watching a much younger sibling, like a 5-year-old sibling,
Take
that can work.
take your younger brother trick or treating or something. It's like, and there's 12 years difference between them. Yeah.
And but also, like, not that is an expectation. And if your 15, 16, 17-year-old did that for another family, they would get paid as a babysitter. So it's not their inherent
Oh yeah, you
responsibility.
get credit for it
Your
in some way.
children
Sure.
Your children are your responsibility. You don't get to parentify one of your other children to be responsible for your other children. Like, you are the parent.
Hmm.
And if you do have one of your older children who is developmentally capable do something for that is caring for the younger child. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
outside of like, can you please change the baby's diaper? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like putting
Mm-hmm.
them in charge of the safety, care, and well-being of a younger child. Then they
Mm-hmm.
should be compensated appropriately as if it is a job, so that they know that it's voluntary and not that child is actually their responsibility. They're not old enough. They don't have their own children. That's your child. You don't get to take
Mm-hmm.
one of your children and put them in charge of one of your other
Mm-hmm.
children.
Mm-hmm.
It fucks with their head. It's not good.
Okay.
Now, instilling a sense of taking care of each other, a sense of standing up for each other, protecting each other, that's different. That's the same as,
helping with the family. Yeah, that's if you've got an
yeah,
older. I mean, it depends on differences in age. Is my first thought.
does.
Putting a 10-year-old in charge of a 7-year-old, that's one thing. Putting a 17-year-old in charge of younger siblings after they get home from school until mom and dad get home, that's not a paying job. That's being a big
Sure it
brother,
is.
big sister,
I
right?
disagree. That 17-year-old
So,
did not go have children of their own to take care of. You, the parent, are forcing them to be in charge of the
yeah.
safety and well-being of someone that they would normally get paid to do if they were to do it in anyone else's home.
Oh, yeah, but they're not. They're doing it because I'm buying them food and providing a roof over their head, and they're
Right.
helping with the family. They're old enough to help go plow the field now. They can help the family.
Plowing the field of food that feeds the family and
Mm-hmm.
participating in that chore is not the same as childcare.
Okay.
Being put
I'll
in
have to think about that one a
charge,
little bit.
because if something out of their control and terrible happens to one of those smaller children while
Mm-hmm.
under their watch,
Mm-hmm.
that is,
That would also be terrible for a parent to then, I mean, if something out of control happens, then you would absolutely treat that as well. That was out of your control.
that
Right?
doesn't
I mean,
mean
if a
that they're going to
burglar
internalize
breaks
it
in
that way.
and
If you
shoot
put
them,
their safety in the hands of your 17-year-old, the way that young brain, undeveloped, by the way, till we're 28 years old, is going to handle that is guilt and self-blame
as it would
versus
be for an adult.
breaking. Yeah, right. But
Well,
you, the
that's
adult, chose to have children and take on that responsibility.
okay.
Forcing your
Okay.
17-year-old to take on that responsibility when they did not make the choice to
Yeah.
have younger siblings,
Yeah.
you did.
Okay. Okay. That's a tough
Now,
one for me.
teaching children to participate in the maintenance of the household through household chores, etc., that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But putting them in charge of the life of a younger sibling is developmentally unfair.
Okay.
And so I'm not talking about like a 10-year-old and then there's a baby born and they want to help change diapers and help take care of the baby. I'm not saying like, no, that's not your responsibility. Don't do that or let your child do
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
that when your child wants to help, or if you request like, hey, like these like momentary things, can you help me with this? Can you heat up the baby's bottle or
Mm-hmm.
whatever?
Mm-hmm.
That's teamwork. You're the parent, you're still there overseeing all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
But leaving your younger children as the sole responsibility of the older child, that is developmentally inappropriate because they're still siblings
Okay.
and they're still like hire a babysitter is what I'm saying.
But boy, a lot of families, big families rely on older kids to help take care of the younger kids. So I'm not sure where the
Help.
line is there.
Help is the key word there. Helping take care of the younger
Okay.
kids
Yeah.
under the
Yeah.
supervision
Not.
of the adult in the house. But putting children in charge of children without adult supervision is what I'm talking about here. Putting
Okay.
that
Yeah.
level of
Yeah. Okay.
responsibility,
That's a complicated one. Yeah.
that will fuck a kid up. If something bad happens to that younger kid that they don't know how to handle,
Oh,
they don't know what
absolutely.
to do, that will fuck that kid up for the rest of their life. And it's not
I
fair. That's
agree.
not
I
fair to
agree.
put that on them. It's not their
Yeah.
job.
Doing that when there's you know, anything but a minimal risk is crazy. Leaving kids at home. You could always have somebody break into the house and murder everybody, whether mom and dad are there or not.
Right.
Barring that, you wouldn't hold anybody particularly responsible for that kind of thing. But yeah, requiring it all the time without some kind of acceptable compensation or doing it inappropriately. Yeah, I'm all over that.
But also in a major,
Yeah, exactly.
not just
If
out of their
something happens,
control, not just out of their control from an outside force, but any age difference. Siblings also don't listen to each other. So they're too comfortable.
yeah,
So the difference in hiring an outside babysitter is that a 10-year-old will listen to a 17-year-old babysitter better than they will ever listen to their 17-year-old sibling. A 10-year-old will tell their
usually I
17-year-old
agree.
sibling to fuck off. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care that mom
Yeah,
put you in
yeah.
charge. That's the other issue
Often
here is that,
unsuccessful. Yeah,
so I'm talking about the age difference being massive, 17 to 5.
yeah,
Because a 17-year-old can
yeah.
pick up a 5-year-old and keep them from hurting themselves. A 17-year-old very
Exactly.
likely can't stop a 10 or 11-year-old from hurting themselves. They're too fast.
That's a good point. Yeah, and that's the
So,
age difference thing I was talking about. Absolutely, absolutely. If they're not able to control the little kid, or if the younger kid is on some kind of machinery keeping them alive, and the older one doesn't know how to run it, well, no, you can't be alone.
or a
You're not. Yeah,
medication, or
unreasonable.
they don't know enough
Yeah, it's
about
unreasonable
CPR.
expectation.
Like if the
Absolutely,
17-year-old's taking care of a
real
2-year-old and
risk.
doesn't know that CPR on a 2-year-old is different, like unless you've trained them on that.
Yeah,
15-year-old babysitters are CPR
yeah,
certified. There's a difference than putting your child in
yeah.
charge of your other child than hiring a babysitter of the same age. There's a difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. It can certainly be done inappropriately and shouldn't be. Yes,
So
absolutely.
anyway, now I'm also not saying that you can't leave your children home alone together. I'm just saying that all of your children should be
Yeah.
old enough to take care of themselves for a few hours. It should not be that one of your children is old enough to take care of themselves, so you put them in charge of the younger ones who can't.
yeah. So you can go drink or go out and party, or absolutely, yeah. That's the
Or what, like, go to a
absolutely.
parenting
You
class,
can't.
whatever it is you're doing, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no judgment about what it is you're doing. Like, parents have lives.
Yeah,
I'm saying that siblings should not be in charge of caring for other siblings. It
yeah,
creates
yeah.
conflict. Siblings are equals. Doesn't matter what their age is. Your job as a parent is to love your children equally and treat them as equals, not place one
Hmm.
of them above any of the others. And that is often what happens
Hmm.
in birth order, is that first oldest children tend to be, once that younger one comes along, so they're the baby. Number one is the baby until
Yeah,
there's another baby in the house. And then number one is
yeah,
parentified. Even if they're 2 years
yeah,
old, they're parentified. You should know better. Be
yeah,
gentle with the baby. Don't do that. 2-year-olds are still babies. 2-year-olds
yeah,
are still babies. They still need their mom. They still need their attachment figure. They still need you just as much, almost, as that new infant needs you. And if you
yeah,
are not finding a way to make sure that both children, or all 3 children, all 4 children, all 12 children, feel like they are equal in the eyes of their parents, that is what causes resentment and competition. And mom thinks this of you, and so you just get away with everything, or you're the baby, and
yeah,
like mom and dad, we get punished for everything and you get away with everything. And all
yeah.
of those sibling rivalry things that happen
Absolutely.
because of birth order are so avoidable. It's just that we
Yeah.
are, I don't know what it is in the human brain. I haven't read about this in a while. I'll have to look it up and get back to you. I don't know what it is in the survival instinct human brain that causes us to, it's almost it's the comparison flaw that we all have, is that I have 3 children, but they are not all the same develop, like they're capable of different things. And so
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
this one
Natural.
is 10 and this one is 8 and this one is 6, I expect the 10-year-old to be better behaved than the 6-year-old. And it's like, well, with some things, but that 10-year-old is still navigating new things constantly. So you're going to have
Yeah.
just as many behavior, like things to tackle with your 10-year-old than that you are with your 6-year-old. They're just going to be different.
It's very individual. Yeah.
But we take comparison and and instead of going same but different, we go different and should be more mature. Different and should know
Should be.
better.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
should, they're this age. They should have this. They should know that. They should do this. A 10-year-old is still developing. They still have a very underdeveloped brain. They have no judgment. Like,
Hmm.
they need their parents just as much as a 6-year-old does.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that it's
Not just an age thing. It's not just like, hey, you're 8 now. This is the way you'll be. It has to do with the individual child and what they've
equal.
responsibility and all those complex things. Yeah. Yeah. They all have
Equal
equal
but not the same
expectations.
is a
And
phrase
at no
that I
point
use a lot.
equal but not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And some of what you were saying made me come to mind the word abdicate. And at no point can a parent abdicate their parenting. You
Yeah.
can assign a responsible party if they're responsible, but at all times you're the parent.
Yep. Yeah.
I think some people want to do that. They take their older kids and they use them
Yeah.
so they can go off and do things, and then that turns into inappropriate, especially with addiction. Um, Run into situations with addiction where that happens. The parents get
Yeah. Well,
addicted,
then
and
there's
then the
extreme
kids are
cases where
raising
older
themselves.
siblings, yeah, end up raising the younger siblings completely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why. That's what I'm kind of thinking of extreme situations. I guess. I mean, there's
Well, that's the thing, is people think
abuse
that it's
of
only
that
extreme
kind of thing.
situations. This is very common in most households, is that
Yeah,
people expect more, and it gets more developmentally inappropriate with the eldest children, because they're
Yeah.
older. So somehow they should know better. But it's like they're still kids. They're still figuring
Yeah.
things out. They're still
Yeah.
learning. They still need attention. They still have behaviors that they don't understand and emotions that get the best of them. Like, it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
if they're 3, 10, or 15, they have the same needs. They need to be seen, heard, validated.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Agreed.
So expecting, you're going to have different expectations for different ages and stages.
That's the word I was thinking. It all comes down to expectations, appropriate expectations,
But expecting
shared expectations.
your children are also going to have different strengths and abilities. So your 6-year-old might have something in check that your 10-year-old doesn't yet. Your 6-year-old
Mm-hmm.
might have fantastic verbal skills, and they learned very quickly how to talk about their feelings instead of react. But your 10-year-old, and maybe you as a parent, did not learn how to teach your children to talk about their feelings until your 6-year-old came along, and you started teaching your 6-year-old from the time they were 2 how to talk about their feelings. Well, at that time, your 10-year-old was 6. So their brain from 1 to 5 absorbed everything. They didn't start learning how to talk about their emotions till they were 6, and now they're 10 and they're still working on it. When your 6-year-old started when they were 2, and now they're 6 and they've got it down. And maybe they're extra gifted, maybe they learned it earlier. It could be any of those things, but just because your 10-year-old doesn't have something perfectly mastered that maybe one of your younger children does, doesn't mean that they don't have a million other skills and strengths that are going on for them. And so you as the parent causing this comparison and competition between your children will create conflict. It will create resentment between your children. It will create guilt and shame and all of these other things in the children that you're having unrealistic expectations for. And so I always go back to the philosophy that every child is different. Within your own family, each of your children is going to be a very different individual, and your job is to guide them according to their strengths and to not shame them for whatever it is they're not particularly perfect at, because they're not meant to be. There's some other person in the world who's perfect at those things and will do the things in the world that need done with those skills. Look at your child's gifts, look at your child with curiosity and with the I want to get to know you, and give them the respect and dignity that a human being deserves. And you've got to do that with each of your children, not compare your children to one another and then shame one of them for not having the same skill as another one. It's like your children are all going to be very different and have different gifts and things, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah. I could talk about this.
Sorry if I ever did that to you guys, you and your brothers. Probably
I don't. Josh,
leaving Josh in charge a lot.
Not a lot, but a few times. Josh was parentified, for sure.
He always suffered from being bigger and being treated as older than he probably should have been.
Than he was.
Expectations of from the time he was like 2. Everybody expected him to act like he was 4.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that went on forever.
Yeah. So we touched on it, but parent maturity changes from first kid to second, third, or fourth or more too, because the first kid is like the trial kid. And you're figuring everything out and you're learning how to change diapers.
Experiment.
So the first kid is always the experimental kid. And then so there's usually like some parenting tactics that tend to evolve once more children, more experience comes along. Parents change their approach. Sometimes, not always, but I've seen it a lot, that parents
Yeah.
change their approach to parenting with younger children because they've seen the effects of the first approach, and they're like, maybe we could, if we shift this thing, or this thing works better. I read this book or took this class or whatever reason for it.
Sometimes you figure it out. Sometimes they don't.
There's
Sometimes they
birth
make
order.
same mistakes forever,
Yeah. But birth order also comes with parental maturity changes as more children come along and parents get older and learn new things and all of that. And so it's all just a shifting, flowing, cauldron of alchemy and
milieu.
And
old word.
There's a lot of parts at play. We don't have nearly enough time on a 1-hour episode to break all that down, but some things to be aware of, some ways to approach, some things to avoid, and happy parenting. Good luck out there.
Parenting through times. That's right. Be safe.
That's going to be my new sign off. Happy
TV
parenting and good luck.
Or something. Yeah.
I've been searching for a tagline for a long time, and I think that's it. I think I found it. Happy parenting and good luck out there.
And good luck out there. I like that. That's a nice ad. I like that a lot.
How you and your parenting partner or spouse treat one another bleeds down into how you treat your children, bleeds down into how your children treat their siblings. And all of it starts with the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We have our Patreon. It costs a lot of money to make a podcast. So if you like it, go check that out. Support us.
Give us some
support the mission. Coming to a YMCA near you if you're in Colorado. Parents' Nights Out. I'll be hosting childcare provided spaces for parents to gather and learn and commune and talk through parenting struggles, all things parenting, and of course offer parent education and coaching, etc. Low cost, childcare included.
That sounds great.
We have our guest next week, Noelle, who is an energy worker, healer. She's been in the childcare industry, I think, longer than I have, 20 plus years. She works with children with disabilities, with autism, ADHD, and she does some really cool healing, like calming techniques. And she's just fantastic. Her energy is just wonderful. Cool. All right. What was my tagline? Happy parenting and good luck out there.
And good luck out there.
And may the odds ever be in your favor. Well, did you learn anything new? Or have you heard all of this before? Do you agree with us, disagree with us, have a question? We want to see you in our inbox or via the Patreon page in the show notes. Tap on either link to send us your feedback, share your own parenting story, or support our mission of providing a connected community for all parents. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you loved this episode, click on that little star and give us 5 of them so we can get visible to other parents who are looking for us. This is your weekly reminder. Parents, you already have everything you need inside of you. You are a strong, loving, capable parent. And here, you are never alone. I'll see you next week.